The Chicago Bears defensive line may be in even a better position than what they looked like in last Sunday's game via a new ESPN stat we're going to take a look at. Plus, we're going to take a look at things that the Bears need to change before their game against the Houston Rockets. All that plus an update to Odunsi right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. So ESPN has created a new stat called win rate, and this looks at the individual performance and team performance in the run blocking, run stopping, pass blocking, and pass rushing on both sides of the ball. And we had two players that ranked out in the top 10, in that. When you look at Gerald Taylor, ranked out as the number 2 overall defensive edge in the game of football in week 1, according to this new stat. He played 15 plays. 7 of those, he won those. He had a 47% pass rush run rate as well, and a 5% double team rate. So when you look at all those things that were thrown towards Gerald Taylor, the fact that he still walked away with 2 sacks, that's a great number to look at there when it comes down to it. And again, this is a new stat for ESPN. We're going to see how it evolves over time. It's kind of trying to bring something like similar to like a PER rating over to football for certain positions. So look at that. And then we graded out, DeMarcus Walker graded out as the number 1 defensive tackle in week 1 as well. 10 plays, 6 wins in that. That's 60%. Had a pass rush win rate of 62% and a 62% double team rate as well. So listen, the dude absolutely killed it. And we know with DeMarcus Walker, he's better in the pass rush when he's lined up as a defensive tackle. That's actually going to be in my list of one of the things that needs to change. So when you look at it, the Bears had the second most effective edge rush in the game of football and the most effective defensive tackle in the game of football. And, hey, listen, I know that the Bears have their own analytics. Again, this is a new stat. I'm not trying to put all the eggs in the basket of looking at this stat, but it is something to look at going forward to see, hey, this new, what does that tell when you match that with the eye test? And I want to be clear here. Any stat, I don't care what the stat is, always match it with the eye test. That's why it's important. One thing that we always highlight here at Chicago Bears Central is it's the most important thing is watching the game of football, not the stat sheet, not just highlights. It's going in and watching the actual game so you can kind of use these type of analytics to pair with what you're seeing in the eye test and then to see where that takes you as far as your opinion. And I think overall, it definitely matches a lot of what we saw with the eye test. Now, again, you want to continue to see this thing grow and develop. It's 1 week. The defense played extremely well over that time period, so you want to just keep looking at how that thing is going to develop for this team over time. But listen, we knew that these guys were going to have big impacts for the Bears. And Gerald Taylor, for the per snap production that he brought, man, it was great. And we'll get into like PFF grades for players because he graded out pretty well in that area as well. So overall, the Bears can have those things to build for. And one of the things that we were concerned about coming into this, of course, was the pass rush. And we'll see how it goes over time. But with that said, taking away from that ESPN stat and moving over to a more traditional stat that we like to look at, let's look at some of the best and worst players per the PFF grade last week for the Chicago Bears. And so Darnell Wright had the highest PFF grade of any player on the offensive side of the ball at 72.7. Velus Jones came in at number 2 at 71.7. Small sample size. Nate Davis, 70.8. DJ Moore, 69.8. Tevin Jenkins, 68.4. Mercedes Lewis, 67.9. DeAndre Swift, 67.8. Kari Blasingame at a 66.5. Coleman Shelton as a 64.5. And Nicole Kmet with a 63.1. Now, what did I say earlier? Use everything that you have as far as analytics and then pair that with the eye test and then walk away. Because I'll tell you what, the fact that the fact that Nate Davis ranked out as our 3rd best offensive player per PFF grade, fuck no. The fact that Coleman Shelton ranked out in the top 10 at 64.5, hell no. If you watch the game, and I know some people have said, and there's been a back and forth between, Bears fans on just how bad the offensive line were. Some people are, of course, blaming Caleb Williams. That comes with being the quarterback at an NFL, the starting quarterback. You're going to get, said it, unfair share of the blame and the claim. It just comes with the territory. But you can't watch Coleman Shelton in his playing patty cake out there and tell me that he was one of the best offensive players. And then when you look at the 10 worst defensive players for the 9 worst defensive players for the Chicago Bears as far as the PFF grade, Odunsi graded out as a 46.3, Caleb Williams at a 49.1 at number 2, DeAndre Carter at 49.4, Gerald Everett at 54.4, Travis Homer at 54.5, Khalil at 55, Keenan Allen at a 58, Ryan Bates at a 59.6, and Braxton Jones rounds it out at 62.8 there. Again, pair that with the eye test, and you can tell me how you guys feel about all that down below. The defensive players, the ones that graded out the best on the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Johnson with a 92.3 grade, which was one of the highest in the NFL in week 1. Darrell Taylor, 78.6. DeMarcus Walker, 76.1. That pairs with that ESPN stat. That kind of makes sense. Tyreek Stevenson at a 74.9. TJ Edwards, who had a very big game for us, led the Chicago Bears in tackles, 73. Andrew Billings at a 68.9. Kevin Byard at a little bit above a 68. Javon Dexter at a 68.1. Chris Williams at 65.1. And Austin Booker with a 63.9. So those are your best defensive players per the PFF grade. And then the ones that were the worst as far as on the defensive side of the ball, Byron Coward, Jaquan Brisker, Montez Sweat, Tremaine Edmonds, Kyler Gordon, Daniel Hardy, Terrell Smith, and Jack Sanborn. Your top 8 players there, your bottom 8 players there as far as defensive rating. That goes from a 61 with Jack Sanborn up to a 50.8 with Brian Cowherd. So you guys can tell me how you feel about that. Again, like I said, I want to be clear here. Take everything with a grain of salt. You gotta take the stats with the eye test. Don't just and the stat sheet, right? Combine those 3 things that you look at there, and then take a look at how you feel. So, it is what it is when it comes down to it. We know that it wasn't a great night for the offense. Not surprising where the Bears rank when it comes down to that. Overall, as well, as we're going to talk about rankings with now the updated power rankings after week 1. The Chicago Bears sit at number 16. That's where they were coming into the season as well, so no change for them there. Seems like there hasn't been a great feeling on how they're going to, going forward with the power rankings or anything like that. So they stay there at number 16. But the most important thing is the Bears going into week 2. What do they adjust against the Houston Texans? And there are a handful of things that they can make adjustments to that I think can help. Overall, better play is the first one, right? Coming in prepared, doing those things. What have you learned? But I think the first thing that I want to see the Bears do a lot better, especially with, we'll see what's going on with Odunsi. We got an update there. But more of Cole Kmet, more of Gerald Everett. I think that we came into this season expecting to see more 2 tight end sets, and we didn't see that really at all. And so Gerald Everett played 34 snaps. 15 were lined up as a tight end. Out of that, he was in the slot and out wide, and he lined up as the fullback in some of those as well. Kmet played only 21 snaps of his 27 snaps overall that he played at tight end as well. He was worked out. We know that we're trying to run that spread offense. And so, there are some cases where Gerald Everett's going to make more sense there for the Chicago Bears, but we need to see more Kmet. We need to see more Gerald Everett together out there. But I think we need to see more Cole Kmet as well. The fact that Cole Kmet played 27 snaps in the last game is just not where you expect Cole Kmet to be at. You expect Cole to play more. Now, I understand. We brought Gerald Everett in here so that he can play as well. He's a damn good. He could be a number 1 tight end on some teams, absolutely. So not trying to take away from that aspect of things at all for Gerald Everett. Don't want to take away from that. But Cole Kmet, to me, still needs to be playing a lot more than what he played. And, we'll see what ends up happening there. Yeah, Everett is familiar with Shane Waldron's system. Maybe that familiarity for an offense that was struggling is part of the reason why they decided to go with Gerald Everett more than Cole Kmet. But I told you guys, that was something I noticed in the preseason. Not only was Gerald Everett playing more with Caleb Williams than Cole Kmet, but he was also playing more downs. And so far in one game, that's all we have so far is one game, that trend has continued. And so I'm not trying to start any type of narrative that they're phasing Cole Kmet out or anything like that. I'm not saying that. So please don't start that nonsense in the comments. I'm not saying that. It's one game, and you're still trying to learn a new offense on top of things. But it is something to monitor and see if that keeps going and the reasons why, to start asking those why questions if this is something that continues and we're seeing more Gerald Everett than Cole Kmet out there, especially, they got the same amount of targets. So that is, and I'm not mad at neither one of them lining up in positions outside of tight end, but again, utilize these guys, especially where you're trying to acclimate a rookie quarterback. Like tight ends could be Caleb Williams' best friend. And so you want to see that a little bit more. And that's why I want to see more of those 2 tight end sets and less empty sets as well that we want to see. Next thing from the Chicago Bears, the run game. One of the biggest concerns that a lot of Bears fans shared when we hired Shane Waldron was the balance between the pass and the rush. Now, I looked at it and said he created better balance between the pass and the rush. The rush game got a higher and higher portion of the offense during his time in Seattle. But there was a little bit of concern when it came down to it. 10 carries for 30 yards for DeAndre Swift, isn't bad, right, as far as the production there, but you want to see more opportunities. And we saw a lot of rundowns. Of course, hindsight's 2020, where we could have ran the ball more, and especially where you have Khalil Herbert and you have DeAndre Swift. You even have Velus Jones that you can use in the running game. Especially, again, a running game could be a quarterback's best friend as well as the tight ends as well. And so you want to have that solid run game. That's Darius who called in. He pointed that out as well. So you got to use those aspects. And I would even say this as well. Use DeAndre Swift more in the passing game as well, right? That's one of the things you brought him in here to be a dual threat running back. And, I understand why we went away from the passing game some, but at the same time, we didn't call the necessarily plays that I would like to see the best out of it. I think DeAndre Swift, I think Khalil Herbert, they have a nice balance there. And, eventually you want to see guys like Roschon Johnson get healthy and see what he can bring as well, as he, offers a different type of skill set than what the other 2 guys have. But ultimately, he's going to have to come down to, we need to see more of the run. And, use the run to establish your pass. Use the run when your pass isn't going. Use the run to wear out the defense. More kind of that. And again, I'm pointing this out because this was one of the concerns that a lot of you guys aired when we hired Shane Waldron. And I said, hey, listen, look at what Shane Waldron's done over the last couple of years in Seattle. He's gotten more and more into that running game. But again, one game, maybe a little bit of an overreaction, but you just want to see that run game utilized a little bit better than what it was. But you also have to have a front line to do it. And that's one of the questions. This has been an offensive line that has been better typically in rushing scenarios. But at the end of the day, our run game has drastically changed from what it was last year because of the amount of our run game that came down to Justin Fields. But you have guys like Braxton, Tevin Jenkins, Nate Davis. These guys are typically better in run offense. And so you want to see these guys, if we're trying to establish our ground attack, we do have the type of personnel on that offensive line that historically has been better in the rush game. So, let's hope that continues forward. And like I said before as well, definitely want to see more of DeAndre Swift in that passing game and being used as a dual threat running back, because that's what you brought him here for. And because of that, even if you are going to have him splitting running back duties, that is something that he's better than at Khalil, is being used in that running game. And so, let's hope that's gonna happen. Overall, I would like to see DeAndre Swift out there more as well, just generally. And so, yeah, DeAndre Swift's your starter. You may have tried to, you didn't use him a whole lot in the preseason because you knew he was going to be your starter. So you want to have that. And, again, a running back, especially in that passing game, could be a safety net for your quarterback, especially your rookie one at that. And we just got to be better. We got to be better overall at pass blocking as well from the running back position as well. So that's one thing that I would like to see as well in that. And then the next thing, Tyler Scott. I get it that he was a healthy scratch reportedly last week. And, take that for what you will, whatever went into that decision-making. But I think that Tyler Scott's speed out there, and to me, as well as how you try to use Velus Jones, Tyler Scott could do a lot of that as well with his speed. And so I would like to see Tyler Scott utilized out there at all, because I can't say better because he didn't play in the first game. But, not a healthy scratch for Tyler Scott. I want to see Tyler Scott get an opportunity. We heard that him and his chemistry with Caleb Williams was some of the best in training camp. Let's see some of that, right? Especially while Caleb is still working his way up to being the quarterback that we hope that he can be. Double down on players that have great chemistry with Caleb. And so, especially with Rome, his status being up in air for the next game, to be able to look at that and to try to bring in somebody who has really good chemistry with Caleb Williams and develop that over your training camp period, I think that could be really good. And Tyler Scott is another player that you can use in multiple ways, which it seems like Shane Waldron is trying to do a little bit more, is working that in for players that he can use multiple ways. So I think that he can definitely be a big part of that. Now, a lot of the things that I've said I want to see change have basically been on the offensive side of the ball. And that is because of how the offense looked in that first game. I think most people would like to see changes on that offensive side of the ball, namely blocking better. Now, we were up against a great, as far as just defensive attack and how they went about their business in the Tennessee Titans. I wouldn't be surprised if the Tennessee Titans, defensive line ends up being one of the better in football this season. But our defense, right? There's still things that can change. And I think when you pair in what we talked about with DeMarcus Walker lining up as the defensive tackle and how it was the best defensive tackle in football per that new ESPN stat, I want to see more of DeMarcus Walker in the interior defensive line. Now, I know you got your 3-tech there and Javon Dexter, who played solidly as well. You got Andrew Billings there, who offers some size. He's really good in the pass game. But I think finding ways to line DeMarcus Walker up inside more so you can see more of Austin Booker. You can see more of Daniel Hardy. Two guys that, played okay, right, but didn't get a whole lot of opportunity. Daniel Hardy made a big play for the Chicago Bears. I think that can be another thing that we need to kind of change is looking at that. Like, I get it. The thing that makes DeMarcus Walker special is that he can play both the inside and the outside. But if we're going off of what the numbers are telling us, he's been much better on the inside, especially in the passing game. And so, for that pass defense, you want to see that opens up more opportunity for Darrell Taylor, and it opens up more opportunity for Austin Booker. It opens up more opportunity for those guys. If you're bringing pressure consistently from the interior, the interior defensive line, that helps your edges, right? And so that allows for Montez, that allows for Darrell Taylor, that allows for Austin Booker to be double-teamed less, potentially, right? Not necessarily guaranteed, but potentially. So I want to see DeMarcus Walker get more opportunities inside going into the next one. It was labeled as a NASCAR package to have Montez Sweat, Darrell Taylor, with DeMarcus Walker and Javon Dexter out there. And so if you're able to do that, listen, I think that could be a defensive line that is in some – I'm not saying that you make that your starting defensive line, but that's definitely a package that you can use there when you need to get a nice balance of everything. And so that's something that I would like to see a lot more from the Chicago Bears going into week 2. But let me know down below, what are some things that you want to see change for the Chicago Bears, an actual tangible change? Not just say, I want to see Caleb Williams pass better. Like how? Like, what do you want to see? Do you want to see them run more slant routes? Do you want to see them attack the middle of the defense? Like, those type of things, high-level things here. I want to hear from you guys on what you would like to see change for the Chicago Bears going into week 2, especially against the Houston Texans. Because I tell you what, we can't get away playing as sloppy offensively as we did against the Titans, against the Texans. But with that said, we did get an update to Odunsi. So it did came out that he had a grade 1 MCL sprain and that he initially left the game and tested out fine. Went to sleep, woke up the next day, had some pain in there. And so they have not ruled him out to play against the Houston Texans. It is in doubt, though, right? So it's not guaranteed. It seems like from what we've read that it seems more likely that he sits out in week 2 than plays, but there is still that opportunity that he could play in week 2. And so we'll see what happens there. But I think overall, when it comes down to is you want Rome Odunsi to be healthy for the long part. So if he has to sit a game to just let it heal up, I'm not mad at that. Most Bears fans won't be mad at that. Yeah, they'll be disappointed to not have him out there, especially against the Houston Texans. But the fact that it is a minor sprain and that it doesn't seem like something that's going to linger on. Yes, he was listed as week to week, but it seems like the Bears are pretty confident once that pain heals up that he'll be ready to go. He'll be back to himself, back to normal sooner rather than later. And that may just come with him missing a week. And, that is what it is when it comes down to it. Like, in the play that he got hurt on, he was blocking for Velus Jones. He was getting active. So, those are good things. But for Rome, you want the recovery, whether it's speedy or not, just recover, get back on the field. There is a lot of football left to be played. We've only played one game so far. So because of that, you don't want to try to rush him back. And I get no inclination that the Bears are putting pressure, trying to rush anybody back. It seems like the Bears are going to let things come to them as they will. And that's the way that they should play it right now. It's not just about one game, right? Yeah, us as fans, we get to worry about it game to game, right? Because we get to just zoom in and just worry about that. But everybody else has to really kind of look at it for the long term and the short term. And the last thing you want to do is allow Rome to play, and then it turns into something that's lingering where he could have sat for a game and then been back, and then it doesn't linger on anymore. So, overall, really good prognosis. The fact that it's a minor sprain to the MCL, nothing too serious there. I think that that's all fine and dandy, and that's all great. And yeah, that's the best situation for him. So, we'll see what happens when it comes down to it. And overall, we're hoping for a much better performance from the offense and from the team overall against the Houston Texans. You got to be prepared for this game in week 2. You cannot take this lightly. If you do, you're going to get embarrassed out there. And so, I have a short on the channel. Make sure you guys go and check that out. Doing this whole new thing. One reason why is what we're going to do with our shorts here. One reason why, 1 minute video in and out. And why did not give up on Caleb Williams? There have been 4 quarterbacks to start that was drafted number 1 overall to start off with a worse completion percentage or a worse QB rating than what Caleb Williams did. And yeah, one of those guys is a Hall of Famer. 2 of the guys won a Super Bowl. Another one had a damn good career that was cut short with injury. So, let's not get these knee-jerk reactions to Caleb yet. And we'll see what it's going to turn into. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.